Hi, welcome to NL Reads. Thank you for being the advocate for the wards. How are you doing?
I'm just doing great. It's nice and mild here this morning, so life is wonderful.
Nice. Why don't we start? Why don't you tell us a little bit about you to start out with?
Okay, sure. So I'm born and raised in Grand Falls, Windsor. I did go away to do my university degree and came back here and have a family here. So I'm here to stay. I love books, I love reading, and I love the library.
Wonderful. And why did you want to advocate for The Wards by Terry Doyle?
To be quite honest, there's a little bit biased. Terry's from the Ghouls, and I have family from there, so it was a stomping ground, Heffernan's Line. So cousins there, so it really sang to me really quickly. And of course, other great writers are from the Ghouls as well, including Wayne Johnston. So it really, yeah, it grabs me.
Yeah, a bit overrepresented, I think, in literature with authors. The Ghouls is. Um, but yeah, no, it's. And why don't we start? Why don't you just tell us a little bit about the book?
Okay, sure. So we're looking at a family, the Ward family, and so we are introduced to their family dynamic and who they are. So characters: Al, the dad; Gloria, the mom. We have Gussie, and we have Dana, and we look at their structure, and then we have side characters that are introduced through their circumstances and their life choices, and of course we know that there is a family tragedy of sorts, and we watch them as they navigate through those circumstances.
One thing I found interesting about this book is that it's set in St. John's. A lot of Newfoundland literary fiction is set in St. John's, but it takes us out of St. John's as well and into Central, which is an area I don't know very well, but I'm pretty sure you do. Do you want to tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I sure do. So yeah, again, reading Newfoundland and Labrador literary fiction, I'm a huge fan. So, and I do love novels that are set in St. John's in particular, because of course I did some of my university degree there. I have family there. It was the vacation spot. It was the it place to go. So when I read novels set in St. John's and they have references to street names like Lime Street, like I know those places and I feel like I'm part of the narrative. So there's something about the wards that really struck me is that we move outside of the Avalon. So of course, Dad Al works away. He works in Labrador. So we are brought to that place immediately. And then the Ward family has a cabin several hours away from St. John's. And they go to the cabin and they participate in moose hunting. And really, if you live in rural Newfoundland, if you don't love the woods or nature, why are you living there? So it really helped me be part of the story. And I think other people who read it will get a strong sense of place rooted in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it when you feel like I said I'm not familiar with Central, but I definitely felt like I was transported in those parts. And speaking of transported, one thing I found really striking about this book as post is I mean, I know a lot of people, a lot of families where someone works on rotation. I don't think I've ever actually seen that represented in our literature though.
Completely, 100%. And to be quite honest, I know rotational workers because that, again, that's something that happens. It's common for
Mm-hmm.
Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. But to think that, people from St. John's work away, it was just like, oh, okay, right. Like we
Yeah.
all share things in our lives, and of course, it happens in the Avalon too. Yeah.
Yeah, and its effect on the families and the culture. It's important, I think, to have books like this that show that side of our culture as well. To make it represented to everything. Another thing I thought, and this kind of goes along with the rotational thing, is okay, this is a working class family, obviously, but I mean, like they have the big truck, they have the cabin, they have, their daughter in, they're paying for their daughter's university. They have all these markers of financial success, despite it being part of a class that is usually considered slightly lower. And I thought that was really fascinating too, the way our culture kind of, you know, prioritizes people. Not, and I may have lost the train of this one a little bit.
No, but I
But
can pick up on that
yeah.
because that is a thought that came to me as well. Again, working class people. I'm a working class person, so like, how could I relate to the characters? What becomes important to us, and even though, like, if we look at the dialogue between characters, it's quite rudimentary. Like, they're just regular speaking people. It's not highfalutin mumbo jumbo. So yes, we can see what they strive for materialistically, but we're root in their conversation. We know these are just regular folks doing regular things and having to face, circumstances that are overwhelming, and we're stuck in those places sometime having to question, how do I get through this? But every single character in this novel seems to face those circumstances with a sense of, I just got to get up and get the job done.
Mm.
And it really, I found those characters, every character I found really phenomenal in their own way. And the writing in particular, when we're introduced to the nuances of how their thoughts on things, it left me thinking. It was a very thought-provoking novel in that way.
Absolutely. I think one of the characters that I think the most about is actually one of the more secondary characters, Gussie's friend Mark. I mean, how much do you love Mark?
I loved Mark immediately, and I didn't want to make any predictions in this novel at all. And I loved the pace of it. Like, we were introduced to the characters, the storylines, the side stories. It moved nice and quick, but Mark was just there simmering, and you knew that something really beautiful was coming.
Yeah, and yeah, that last, not to be spoilery, that last little bit, those last few lines.
I saved the last 20 pages for last night because the pace was really quickening. And then I loved what was happening with Gloria and her sister. I found that storyline just absolutely incredible. Again, that sense of when you're faced with really challenging, life-changing circumstances, how do you pick yourself up and move forward? And Gloria does a formidable job. And I love the nuances of questioning her relationship to her husband and what it meant to be in relationship with him. And of course, there are other components where, she had to face some very, very hard truths about that. But to go back to Mark and the ending, I'm really glad I saved the last 20 pages for last night, because when I closed the book, I did have a good heaping sob, I have to say. It was, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I'm talking so much about these books and how much I cried, and I don't want to make it sound too weepy because it's a funny, beautiful book, but man,
yeah,
that last little bit.
All the feels.
But yeah, Gloria and her sister too. Not that I've forgotten, but man, what an interesting relationship that is. Gloria's sister almost seems like, oh, but they're for the grace of God, it's kind of tale. Like, Gloria's sister is, her sons are away. She seems to have lost their, and I think that might be, she's on her own. I think it's almost like what Gloria fears her life could be. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, Paula. And yeah, I felt loneliness when Paula was speaking. And I have to face that too. I have children and they're leaving.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and they're leaving me, and what do I do next, and where do I go? And and of course, the theme throughout the novel about family relationships and how do we can't choose what family we're born into, but we can form relationships outside of those direct ties. And so, yeah, again, another really strong. Every storyline was strong, but and another component was the humor in it, because I know we were just talking about sobbing and crying, but this book was also very funny, and the humor was subtle in ways, and I'm sure people will laugh at different things, but like something I found really funny would be the Civic that Gussie drove, the car that he drove, even like that just made me kind of cackle with good laughter, especially when he tinted the windows.
Of course he did. Of course he did. We all know Gussie. Like, everyone knows a Gussie. We have one in our street.
Yeah, really though. I'm related to a Gussie.
Yeah. And again, not a character you see all that often in literature, but he's very, very real.
Yeah.
And one thing I think that was so moving about this book too is, like, it is this time of transition and struggle. There are these difficult family relationships, but they all really do want to be together, like, as frustrating and upsetting as it all is. You don't get the feeling like everyone, like Dana's off with her boyfriend, but she's not like, oh, I want to leave my family behind. They're trying to find independence while maintaining these relationships. Like, so I think the love at the center of the family is very real.
Yeah, and that's got to be true in most families, of course. And I think that's what Terry Doyle has mastered, is that sense of, yeah, even though like you want to throw mud at each other lots of times, at the end of the day, if you have blood ties on this planet, that keeps you rooted and keeps you grounded.
So what is your big NL Reads pitch? Why should everyone read this book? Why should people vote for it?
Well, I have to say, if I was going to be asked a question to, like 3 words to describe this novel, they were going to be engaging, thought-provoking, and crafted. It is just, I think it's a work of art, and it's got all the things that you need in it. It's got humor, it's got love, it's got challenges, and it's going to make you look at yourself a bit too. So, that's my pitch.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming and talking to me about it today.
Oh, it was super enjoyable. Thanks so much.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.